Welcome back to another episode of Checked In with Splash. My name is Camille Whitestern. I lead experiential marketing here at Splash, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here. This is our first live in-person podcast event, and I'm thrilled to be joined by a brilliant marketing rock star. Nina Skoko is a global partner marketing at TikTok, and we're here today to unpack how her team uses events to fuel content creation and drive event-led growth. Nina, thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. First off, such an honor to be on the first live podcast at an event, but also I feel like this is longtime fan, first time caller moment, because I've told you this before, I'm a Splash super fan, so I am so excited to chat with you today.
I love that. Well, the fan love is mutual. Big TikTok fan over here, and really just so impressed with what you and your team have been able to accomplish. So I'm excited to pick your brain a bit today. I'm hoping we can cover a fair amount of ground, so let's go ahead and get checked in. Why don't you start us off and just tell us a little bit about your career journey to date, how you ended up at TikTok in partner marketing, and would love to hear what you love about what you do.
Yeah, so what I love about what I do is, at my core, I'm a storyteller and I'm a creative. So everything I do is fueling that passion. So I often joke with people, my career has essentially been a trajectory from traditional media to TikTok, which is obviously a newer platform, but I started my career at the Wall Street Journal, which is print, and then I went to
Very
CBS.
traditional.
Yes. One could say maybe the most traditional, a few hundred years old. And then went to TV, went CBS.
Wow.
Not as traditional, but we're getting in that realm. And then I went to TikTok, and people are like, oh my gosh, Nina, that's so different. How did you make those changes? How did you bounce around? I often say it's not different. It's the same, because at every media company, the red thread is the same, that people want to hear good stories, people want to feel connections, people want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And TikTok's an entertainment platform, so we're built on a content graph, we're not built on a social algorithm or a social graph. So it's actually more similar to, these entertainment platforms. So at the heart of everything I've done is true storytelling and creating authentic connections with audiences through those stories.
That's beautiful. I love that you're bringing in this theme of storytelling. I think it's going to be a major theme today. I think a lot of our listeners can relate. Certainly a lot of people here at Inbound, I'm certain, would resonate with that, and hopefully identify as a storyteller themselves. I think at the core of what drives people to events is what is that compelling story. So I'm really excited to learn from you today and share my learnings with everyone here. So okay, talk to me a little bit about how what your team is working on really fuels the marketing and content strategy. I'd really love for you to also paint us a picture of, what does success look like, and how are you measuring that?
Yeah, so I'm an integrated marketer, and I really look at events as a part of our brand and integrated strategy, a key part and an important part. But I look at it in the same way in my media mix as social, digital, and our whole media roster. It's an important channel for us to make genuine connections with audiences and find those moments to drive action and to drive success. So my team is the partner marketing team at TikTok, which essentially means that we work with third-party companies who have built for TikTok and built solutions that help brands get started or level up on TikTok. So examples of this are Nielsen and Kantar, who help brands measure success on TikTok, creative partners who obviously help brands create for TikTok, so those are the Canvas, the Quick Frames, the Vidsies of the world, and then we have commerce partners who help people sell on TikTok, and we have branded effects, sound partners, campaign management partners, so people who really help brands level up their campaigns on TikTok. So that's my core focus area. So what we do is that we partner with these companies to go to market together. So we do a mix of events for these partners to educate them, really bring them into the ecosystem. We usually use these as chances for them to educate us as well, because they're the ones on the ground. They hear firsthand from brands what they're loving, what they're struggling with, and then we really try to create a two-way conversation in these events.
So smart.
And then we also obviously go to events together. So for example, We're here today with some of our partners. We're here today with you. So, we really look at it in two ways. So events can help us engage with brands together and also engage with our partners so that we have a more fruitful and thoughtful relationship.
I love that. Sounds like your team is very busy and doing a lot of great, important work for the TikTok business.
Yeah.
Let's weave in the storytelling aspect again.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about how you think about event-led content creation. I mentioned event-led growth, business growth, but before we get to the business growth, right, obviously content creation, that storytelling is so important. So, I'm wondering if you can walk me through how you view that content creation journey in the pre-event, during the event, and post-event stages, because I'm sure there's different tactics that you're employing there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm an integrated marketer, which I really see the full funnel of every touch point that we do with audiences when we go to events. So I like to see events as not, okay, I went there for 1 hour, I went there for 2 hours, and that's the start and end. Event starts as soon as you sent your first splash email and they go to that first splash page.
Yes, preach.
Because if somebody can't go because there must be a good reason why they're not coming to my event, right? So if they can't go, I have to leave a good impression with them on the splash page. The splash page should be a welcome mat, and if I'm not home or they can't come, they should still have a really great experience with me. So I really look at it from point A, so the first touch point they have with us, to point Z. So pre-event, I really take the time to think, okay, how do I make an event more of an experiential campaign? So at every time I'm interacting with my customer, it's a really great experience, because if we're asking someone to do any action, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And we need to make it a good experience for them. So first and foremost, you make a really beautiful branding package. So, and that doesn't mean matching luggage. That means that you have a mission, you have something that looks very complete, very neat, very thoughtful.
You're on brand.
Yeah, we're on brand, and it's exciting. I mean, everyone loves really beautiful creative, right? So we really are focused on making everything look really beautiful, very thoughtful to the media. But I also use pre-event to craft that story. I want to get to know my audience. So going back to the first touch point of I send my splash email, they register. I love the splash forms because that's my chance to get to know you a little bit better. So at TikTok, our mission is to inspire creativity and bring joy. And everything that we do needs to live and breathe that mission.
Yeah.
So, and also, TikTok is a community platform. It's not just me talking to you. There's comments, there's stitching. So I want to hear, what are you expecting? Are there certain topics you want to hear from? So we try to do polls. We try to ask people, are you excited to hear about something? Do you want to hear from someone? And then let them almost create the event with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're inviting them in, as you said, into that event creation process, which is then where I think we're getting there. It's going to fuel your content creation that comes out, that's surrounding that event.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that.
And so you're creating touch points that allows your audience to fuel. So one, I'm getting insight. Okay, what do these people actually want to hear? Because
what do they care about?
What do they care about? So obviously when you're first going into your CRM like Splash and you're sending emails, it looks like an Excel. It looks like this big sheet of just information, but I don't really get a full picture of like what are the things that I need to address? What are the pain points? What are the desires? What are the loves? And so it's really hard to create a really thoughtful content strategy at your event if you don't know any of that. You know, knowing just demographics isn't very helpful. I know that's very traditional in terms of like, I want to target someone who is X age to X age, is this gender. It's like, guess what? People that are 30 and are female have different likes and want to hear different things from TikTok. So I want to hear exactly from this audience, what do they want to hear from us? How can we have a better relationship? What will make this event as fruitful as possible?
Yeah.
And so from that, we can develop a really strong content strategy at the event, and I'll get a better sense too at the event what touch points I can create to make the event last longer than that however long your event is, 2 hours, 2 days. So, going into that.
I love that. I always say the experience doesn't end when the event does. And I think
Yes.
you've done a really great job of articulating how you view that as well and how you're actioning on that viewpoint.
Yeah, so like at events, for example, we were just at Cannes and we did some events with our partners. So we had a station where we made a custom branded effect with our partner, which is obviously really fun, right? It's like almost like a digital postcard, which we do try to do at all our events.
Love
and people
that.
are like, oh my gosh, I love it. We're making TikTok videos. And we're like, yes, okay, great, you get the value, but also sneaky, we need other ways to measure event success beyond attendees.
Right. So let's go back to that. What are some of the ways you're measuring success or metrics that you and your team care about most?
Right. So we obviously look at attendees and all those traditional event marketing metrics. Those are of course important to us. But we need to look a little bit more at satisfaction and if people really got what they needed out of that day. Especially when you look at partner events, for example, we're really trying to create a stronger relationship and educate them on maybe the newest products or, things we need to build together.
Right. You're not just doing an event just to do an event. You have goals associated with that program.
And then on the equal side, when we go to market together and we do things for events, like for example, doing the branded effect, I want to see, did people enjoy that activation? Were people talking about it? And was I able to reach people beyond that event? Because for me, the real success is if the event has success outside of the four walls of your event venue.
Yeah. So just to dig into the tactics here a little bit, how do you post-event? How do you measure that attendee satisfaction?
Yeah. Well,
what tools are you using, or how are you tracking that? How are you sharing that back with your team and making sure that you're taking that feedback and then iterating for the next one?
Well, not to sound like a total fangirl, but thank you, Splash. You've really helped us with a lot of our metrics. So Splash has been a really great tool for us in many ways because essentially usually what we do is we reskin our registration page post-event and we'll add surveys, we'll add articles, we'll add content from the event. So if we had pictures, if we had videos, if we said we're going to send you content post-event, that's all going to live on the Splash because no one wants to get an email anymore with 1,000 links.
Email overload.
So much email overload, but if it can live in one hub.
Yes.
And my Splash page lives on forever, and I can keep seeing if people are coming back and they're looking at the articles and they're clicking. And obviously, we look at survey data. We look at satisfaction scores, like how likely is someone to recommend coming back to the event.
Right.
Those are all really important to us, and we can use that measurement. But we really like to optimize based off of that feedback that we get.
I mean, I think you have to, and I would encourage any of our listeners live in the audience today or who are tuning in after, if you are not sending out a post-event feedback survey and collecting that critical and super valuable qualitative data that you can turn into quantitative data, right? You can have an attendee NPS or an attendee sentiment score and then track that over all of your events. Start doing that, tomorrow. Okay, so obviously TikTok is known for user-generated content. We can't not talk about that. How are you incorporating that into post-event, right? We talked about keeping the experience, that brand experience alive even after the physical live event ends. What are some ways you're doing that?
So we do this in a few ways. So as I said, we like to bring the platform to life in many ways at our events. So at all of our events, we bring creators.
Smart.
Yeah. So creators.
They're like your evangelists too, right?
Creators fuel our platform. They are everything. And to be honest, they know more about TikTok than we do. We learn from creators all the time. And they're
That's awesome.
Don't you know you should do this, this, and this? I'm like, now I do. So why gatekeep the expert? So we bring the expert out. So creators are really the lifeblood of our platform. So we bring them to industry events, partner events, and we allow people, we almost bring the comment section to life because people get to ask, how do you do this? How do you make that? What software do you use? And then obviously if people are posting with the creator or the creator posts, we can see metrics from that. However, when we do things like the branded effect, we can see, okay, X amount of people shared it. We saw this amount of engagement. So that's where we can really see metrics. But we also try to we create TikToks all the time at events. I mean, it would be silly not to make TikToks at events as TikTok, but
I know, I need you to teach me more. I want to become a TikTok star. Can we make it happen?
I think so.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll make a TikTok
Let's
after
do
this.
it. Meet us after this live show.
Yeah.
We're going to make a TikTok.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
And then at Cannes, we had a content studio, and we filmed so many videos in that content studio, but we're still rolling them out. So Cannes was a few months ago,
right,
and we still have content that we're rolling out. It's getting great engagement. We made it evergreen. Obviously, we stayed on topics that were really timely at Cannes, but we wanted to bring that environment and that expertise from the industry event to our audiences. So we created tons of videos. We're still rolling them out. So essentially, I'm still in Cannes.
First of all, love that for you.
Yeah.
I think all of us in our heads would love to be in Cannes right now.
Yeah.
And also, before we went live, we were talking about, how you can create that sense of FOMO, right?
Yes.
Even post-event.
Yes.
You didn't make it to our last event in Cannes. Catch us in the next one, right?
Yes.
You didn't make it to our live podcast recording for Check In with Splash. You're lost, but catch us at the next one, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
It's FOMO without resentment.
Exactly.
It's
No
FOMO,
resentment.
But it's like, it's okay, because we got you next time.
Yes, it's inclusive FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. And
I
it's
love
like
that.
creating a digital experience, right? Not everyone can go to an event.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because again, it's an extremely important touch point within an experiential campaign.
Yeah.
And you can create those emotive and impactful connections through different channels and almost bring the event to your TikTok page.
I love that, and I'm excited to take a page out of your book and start doing that around our events as well.
Yeah, when we make our TikTok
Exactly.
after this. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to be a pro.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to... You mentioned how you find creative ways, like really experiential ways to make sure that you have some like TikTok creation happening at your events, which I understand is hugely important, and I see the value there plain as day. I'm really curious, like, one of the things I hear most in the broader community of marketing and event professionals that I get to be in and love to be in is, just people wanting to know what are those fresh sources of inspiration. So I'd love to know not only where you get your inspiration or your team, but any advice you have for marketers who are really looking to foster more innovation in their event and content creation strategies.
Yeah, I'm extremely lucky. My team is very creative, just generally, and very open and loves to share ideas. So we obviously look at TikTok a lot. There's a ton of event marketing TikToks and DIY TikToks and experiential TikToks. So we're always on there sending TikToks like, oh my gosh, we just do this at our event. Or if there's a DIY, like home decor thing, it's like, oh my gosh, we could do this, we could do this. So we're always sharing. And obviously there's other platforms that are incredible resources. But in my role, obviously, as a partner marketer, I have to listen to the ecosystem as well. So we're always ready to jump on an opportunity and be flexible.
You're staying agile.
Yeah, we have to be. We're a small but mighty team, and we're ready to go where the opportunity is.
Love it.
So we obviously have our hallmark events. We'll go with our core TikTok for Business team and obviously bring a partner aspect to it. However, we usually listen to our partner ecosystem because they'll be like, hey, are you going to this event? Splash messages us. Are you going inbound? We are now.
Love that.
Yeah, so we need to see where the opportunity is, and we like to stay flexible. So usually it's people come to us and they'll tell us about the event, we'll hear about the audience, and we really let the audience dictate like how we show up. We obviously have our goals, right? We want to teach people about how to use TikTok, how TikTok can really help level up their business strategy. But we really try to be nimble and go and be flexible and be creative.
I love that. It sounds like you have a really balanced approach between, those really creative, out-of-the-box ideas and marrying that with business strategy, because at the end of the day, we work for businesses. So, we want to be feeding those overall business objectives as well.
Yeah, 100%. And as you said, like finding those moments at these events that you can measure. So if I'll put
What's
my
an
hand up.
example? Can you give me like an example? One of your favorite kind of moments where you felt like it just like clicked for you and your team, or if you have an example, I know I'm putting you on the spot
No,
here,
no,
but
you're-
an example of one of those really special moments at an event that you shared back with your team, and they were like, "Wow, this is so exciting! Like
Yeah.
we are seeing the fruits of our labor."
Yeah, so we actually went to Dreamforce last year, which is one of our partners, Salesforce's big hallmark event in San Francisco. And to be honest, it was like first time we had created a booth and then had creators present at the booth. We
Wow.
usually brought them on stage or had them come to meetings. So we weren't sure how people were going to react to it too, because, you know, we weren't sure if people were going to be like, what's TikTok doing here? Or like, what are these creators talking about? The crowd loved the creators.
Really?
And were like coming up to us after and saying, we want to make TikToks with you. And we were like, and we weren't expecting people to want to do that. We thought, okay, we're going to go. We just want to teach people about TikTok. We want to teach them how to sell and how they can grow their business with the Salesforce integration. And people were coming up to us and the creators, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're such big fans. Can you make a TikTok with us? Can you tell us how to create? Can you give us the top tips and tricks?
Wow.
So obviously we got the event attendees. We counted that. But then we started looking and using kind of our campaign management social tool to be like, okay, how many times was this mentioned? And then creators started posting because they had such a great experience at the event. So the reach was really fantastic, and it was all organic. We weren't sure. We were kind of testing to see how the event would work for us, and then that ended up being a big learning. We're like creator presentations at our booth all the time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like what you're telling me is like events can be a really powerful brand amplification tool, and like you said, feed even organic
Yeah.
engagement.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it should.
Yeah.
It should. Your event should be an opportunity to create content.
Preach. Amen. We're gonna take that golden nugget and distribute it to the world, broadcast it to the world.
Yes.
Okay, so we are talking about brand amplification, so let's dig in here a little bit. I would love if you have another example, or something that maybe not example of something you've done already, but anything that you're maybe testing, any experiments. I feel like, you know, as a partner marketer, integrated marketer, if we're not experimenting, we were talking about this earlier too, if we're not experimenting and testing new things, you know, we're going to become extinct dinosaurs. So I'd love to, if you want to further kind of explain what some of the impacts you're seeing on, you know, from your partner events on that brand amplification goal, and or in the future, what are some things that you're kind of excited to test and play around with?
Yeah, so an example that comes to my mind is that we actually started off as a branding exercise where we have a program called the TikTok Marketing Partners Program, which is essentially our official community of badged third-party partners, like I mentioned before, so creative partners, measurement partners, campaign management partners, etc. So these are the Salesforces, Shopify's, Canvas, etc. And we were seeing actually that obviously everyone knows who those brands that I just mentioned were,
Right.
but we were having a little bit of a brand awareness issue for the program itself.
Okay.
And we were like, that's something we need to address because the badge is powerful. We essentially give the badge to companies that have proven that they're the best of the best at helping brands create or level up on TikTok. And if people don't know about it, we aren't giving all the great spotlight on the great work that these partners have done.
Right.
So we did a big branding exercise to drive awareness for the program. So we created badges for each of our categories that partners could use on their website, on any comms, to be like, I'm badged. And when they say I'm badged, that means something. That means TikTok said they're the best of the best. And that started, you know, really gaining traction. And so when we were like, okay, we need to evolve this, we need to keep this momentum going for our partners. So we're like, okay, we want to do a partner day, which is a day of education where we can bring leadership from around TikTok to talk to our partners and really do a rally cry around what are the things together that we need to work on, what are the things that we need to build, what our audience is saying, and really have a day where we could connect and educate each other. So we're like, how do we bring that creative badge to life? So we started with a branding exercise where essentially if you look at our branding package from our splash to the event materials to everything, it's like all variations of this badge. It's the same color, it has the shapes. Obviously, it looks very TikTok, but
Yeah.
the badge is like weaved throughout everything that we did.
I love that.
But also, so we started it off as an event in APAC.
Okay.
And we've been to 10 cities, so we've gone from
Wow.
Korea to LA to New York, Sydney, Singapore, London. So we've been everywhere.
That scale is amazing.
Yeah, and we like to think every time that we do post-event surveys and we ask, okay, what's the NPS score? What was your satisfaction in certain education areas? What would you like to see more of? And we would literally take that feedback and apply it to the next event. And
So smart.
oh, well, thank
Just
you.
like,
Thank
you're
you.
just
We're
nonstop.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be nimble. And like I said before, we had to give partners something to look forward to. We didn't want it to be a partner event. It's like, okay, well, you missed it. Sorry. That's not really partnership. That's like just an event that you just make people feel bad because they didn't get to go.
Yeah.
It's that FOMO, but with resentment. But we don't do that at TikTok.
I love that you brought this up as an example because I think it's an interesting angle. I think, when I say brand amplification, yes, we could be talking about your business brand, but beyond that, like in terms of like driving attendance,
Yeah.
right, registration and attendance, right? When we going back to that like pre-event
Yeah.
phase and how to leverage content in that phase and or using that phase of the event to then fuel future content. You just sparked a really interesting thought, which is how are people approaching like program brand amplification? Because you have these event programs, these series that you're doing all over the world. You need, when you're launching in a new market, how do you make the people aware in that market that this is an event, an experience that's worth their time to attend? So I love how you just broke down that branding exercise specific to an event program or an event series.
And we try to localize them too. So at every event, we would have swag and stickers. So, in Dubai, we made it local to the region. We would get feedback from the local teams like, hey, what are phrases that are really popular on TikTok?
Fun.
What are like icons we could do on the swag? So every event was different. So if you ended up going to multiple cities, you'd actually have a different experience.
I love that too, because then it's like nothing is cookie cutter, and I would imagine that probably greatly influences in a positive way registration and attendance, because if you see that this event is coming to your city, it's going to be unique, it's going to be something different than anything else you could attend in any other city or market. I love that.
It's kind of like the world tour approach, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to a concert, it's not going to be the same if you go
Right.
multiple times. The performer is agile. You're going to see different people. You're going to notice different things every time. So we really tried to make it a true world tour, but it
Yeah.
felt like a really neat, and it felt packaged. It felt like a series, but it was able to be flexible enough that we could optimize it based off of what people wanted to hear, going back to that two-way conversation. It should be what people want to learn about. No one wants to come to something and it's like I'm just talking at
No.
you for a couple hours.
Right.
And it should be local. It should feel like I've worked in global marketing for a long time. There's nothing worse than taking one asset from one market and putting it in another and assuming it's going to work. Spoiler, it won't.
Okay, so like, what would you say are your like top 2 or 3 tips or suggestions for someone who maybe doesn't have that global experience, who's maybe wanting to take an event series or program that's been successful in one market and scale it up on a global level? How would you suggest they get started with that?
Yeah,
what are some of
so-
the key considerations?
Lean on your local teams. Don't assume you know it all. You say, I did this here and I want to scale it in your market. What is your advice for doing that? Give them the overview. Say what needs to be changed, what doesn't. Because sometimes it's like content isn't going to hit because whether the product is a bit different there, the audiences are a bit different.
Or it's a newer market, maybe.
Yeah, and people really they're at a different place in the funnel.
Yep.
They maybe need to understand more how to tell their clients how to get started on TikTok versus their clients are already on TikTok and they're ready to get scaled up.
Right.
So they need different education. But also, like, what are the cultural nuances? Are there sayings in the US that there aren't sayings in EMEA? Yes.
Yep.
Also, little things like spelling. If you're taking Americanized spelling to another market that uses British spelling,
It's tone deaf.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I can tell you made this for someone else and you sent it to me. And some people will be like, oh, what's the big deal? It's still in the same language. It is a big deal because that means that you weren't tailoring to your audience and going back to that two-way conversation. No one, again, wants to have it if they feel like someone isn't talking to them.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. You don't want to come off tone deaf. You want your attendees to feel seen, heard, taken care of. And if it's not all tailored to that local market, then you run the risk of leaving a really bad brand impression. And that can be really detrimental to businesses these days. So it's hard to walk it back once you kind of make that misstep. It's hard to recover fully. And, because what it erodes trust. And I think one of the reasons why I love events is because it's one of the most effective ways to build trust with your target audience in a genuine, authentic way that you can't fake. I have a question for you later about AI, and there's a lot of talk these days around authenticity and how are we going to know what's real or what's been generated by AI, and it's like, well, go to an event and you can very easily see, that AI cannot replace events, or even, that really special kind of marriage we've been talking about between the event and content creation journey. So, okay, I feel like there are 3 more questions I want to ask you, but before we get to these bonus questions, which were actually submitted by the audience, so thank you to folks who reached out to me and submitted these questions. I asked you about key considerations for scaling a local program on a global level, but what about more broadly in terms of maybe someone who is earlier in building an event strategy for their organization or for a new team maybe in their organization? Any words of advice? You clearly have so much experience in the content side of things, also in events and experiential. So for for whether you're a pro or not, I feel like our listeners can learn from you. So what would be some advice that you'd want them to walk away from this episode with keeping in mind?
So I'd say that there are no rules to making a good event.
Okay.
Because as soon as there are rules, it's probably not an innovative or very creative event. So
that's a hot take, and I love it.
So there is no playbook. There is no one way to do it. You need to really figure out how you can make it work for your brand.
Yeah.
Every company is structured differently. So figure out within your own company what is the best way to do it creatively, thoughtfully, and in a measurable and impactful way. So
yes,
my number one piece of advice actually would be that you need to make sure that you can measure success. So obviously you can use the great tools like Splash, where you can see what % of people checked in, what % of people filled out your survey, and really measure those things. But creating those moments, like we mentioned through content creation, digital experiences, find impact. Because, event marketers, we have to admit, measuring ROI for events, it's hard.
It's not easy. I definitely agree. And I think you kind of hit it on the head. If you don't have the right tools in place, right, then you probably won't be set up for success in terms of measuring success.
And you want to be able to answer the question after the event, should we go back?
Yeah. How do you know what's working or what's not working?
And you should feel comfortable to be like, look, we did everything we could to measure it, and maybe we do it a bit differently next year. And it's actually okay to say, you know what, we tried it, there was success, we saw impact. Maybe we try another event. Maybe we try another format. Maybe we try an adjacent event to an industry event. It actually gives you more confidence in your event management to make those strategic decisions, and you're not just phoning it in. You're coming up with a true strategy that works for your brand.
I love that. Any other pearls of wisdom or tips that you want to leave people with before we go into our bonus questions?
So, with event marketing, I would say just have fun. Everybody wants to have a fun experience. They want to have a memorable experience. And that's not just at the event. That's from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
So your splash page should be fun. Your email should be fun. there's so many great templates you can make with Splash. I mean, I was telling you earlier, I don't think I'll take a job if they don't have Splash at their company.
You heard it here first, folks, okay? It's a requirement for hiring.
It's a requirement. Yeah, check my resume. It says that.
I love that. I love that. Yes, be clear on your demands and your needs.
Do not put me to the next round unless you have Splash or you're willing to get on the license. We'll be open to that. We'll be open to that. But there's just so many customizable elements. And it's really funny because we'll have teams and they'll be like, hey, can you help us with our event? We want it to look really polished and we want it to look really neat and we want it to look really fun and out there. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? Because that's like a very
subjective.
Subjective. And they go, well, you know those like web pages you build for your events? I'm like, the Splash pages? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, can you make that for us? I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. So it's like really creating a tailored experience, having fun with your digital platforms, and then setting the tone for your event. So like have fun in every single aspect that you're doing.
I love that. I love that. Have fun, find the fun. It's one of our Splash core values, so I wholeheartedly agree. That's really great advice. Measure your results.
Yes.
And don't forget to have fun.
Yeah, always.
Okay.
Especially at TikTok.
I mean,
can't have fun.
You
we
work
can't
at a
phone
very
it in.
fun brand.
Splash
is very fun too.
Exactly.
I love what I get to do. It's the most fun.
I feel like we probably have the same core. So no boring booths, no boring.
Absolutely not.
No boring decks, no boring presentations.
No in the box ideas, out of the box only.
Exactly.
I love it.
And those drive impact. People remember them.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. You want to leave a lasting, memorable, positive impression on your audience.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of out-of-the-box ideas, innovation, what's next? You know I gotta talk to you and ask you, pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
We have to talk about AI in marketing and events just a little bit. I'm just curious, first, where do you stand on the spectrum of being open-minded or kind of like, it's not for me? For you personally in your day-to-day work, not necessarily like TikTok, because I think everyone is well aware every single tech company out there, or maybe not even non-tech companies, are like, it's this race to AI and have all these AI functionalities. We're going to leave that tabled for now. I just want to know, marketer to marketer, have you dipped your toes in the AI waters? What are your thoughts? Is it chilly, lukewarm, piping hot? How do you feel about it?
I heard this really great quote that was, AI will never replace your job, but you won't be able to be really great at your job forever if you don't lean into AI.
Okay.
Because that is where a lot of companies are going in terms of their solutions and how we work.
Right.
I will say AI isn't new. I know it's a very cool topic and it's on the lips of everyone right now, but a lot of really big companies have used AI technology for a long time. So I feel like we've all been using AI to a degree and maybe not known it. So like secret AI tools. I lean into it. I talk to ChatGPT all the time. I ask for advice. I'm like, ChatGPT, have a brain pause. I can't think of anything. Can you come up with ideas for me? Obviously, I still need to curate it. Not all the ideas are gonna be great.
Right.
But they help me spin. They help
get the
me
wheels
think.
turning.
Exactly.
Okay, so ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Any other ones that you've tried?
Well, I do think some of those tools that are like on Canva where you can remove the backgrounds or change it, I think those are pretty cool.
Okay, I've not tested that out. Very excited to try.
Canva Magic. So yeah, I think generally AI is obviously the future of creating and it's an important element. But I will say that when you look at the success of TikTok and events, authenticity is really the key.
Yeah.
Will AI replace that? Probably not.
I don't think so.
It will help us work smarter. It will help us work faster. It will help us, get the results we need quicker. Will it help us create emotional connections? Will it be perfect? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us have used like some of these filters that...
Right, we were just talking about our global head of partnerships playing around with some Gen AI photo thing, and he had like 1,000 teeth and 20 fingers on his hands.
So it looked great besides the teeth, but that's...
It looks like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah, the Cheshire cat wasn't really... So there's still some kinks we have to work out with the technology, so, it's definitely going to help us work smarter, but it's not going to solve every problem. So I recommend people lean into the tools like ChatGPT and like other really great solutions that companies like Kantar and Canva are developing, but you still need to have your human lens. You still need
Totally.
to have a quality on it.
Even for the prompts, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the takeaways that's really stuck with me is, especially with a chat GBT, it's really all about the art of the prompt.
Yes.
So if you have any go-to prompts or prompts that have worked really well for you, would love to have you share them. We can share them in the show notes for this episode. We also, shameless plug, in our community Slack, we have an AI prompts channel, and we actually have some pretty darn good prompts in there specific to marketing and events. So really, I recommend you check it out. And like I said, I'll add you to that channel. If you're not already in our community, you should be.
Yes.
And then share whatever prompts you've been using that have been working for you.
Gosh, I'm
Sharing
excited.
is caring.
I'm excited.
Okay, thank you for humoring me. Had to.
No, of course.
Didn't want to dominate around AI, but had to ask since it's so top of mind for folks. I have one kind of meatier question for you, again, audience submitted, and then one final one, which you've been talking about a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll maybe get some more color there. So next question is really around, you've shared some really incredible success stories with us today, and I'm wondering how in the heck you and your team go about getting buy-in for some of these newer programs that you're launching, especially if you don't have that historical data to be we know this has worked in the past, so that's why we want to do it again or do it in the future. How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's tough. I'll be transparent. Getting buy-in on anything at a company that's new is it's something we can all connect on, right? We've all had to be in a room with our manager and our manager's manager and be like, I know this is a good opportunity. I know this is a good idea. Please believe me. I think going back to the measurement, whether it be via the, if it's an industry event, really push the industry leader to give you as much audience insight as possible, because really what we're looking for is we're following our audience, right? So we're our audience is going to be there, we're going to be there too, to be in the room with them, talk to them, teach them. So we really need that audience insight to get that buy-in. I say first and foremost, that's really important.
So you start there.
And additionally there's brand plays as well. So are there partners that we are announcing a partnership with them? We're wanting to show their audiences the impact of our joint narrative.
Yeah.
That's a compelling reason too. So that's we want to show up together as two brands and really show off our partnership. That's compelling. But I'd say that, and really showing why do you need to have boots on the ground is important. Events are a lot of time, they're a lot of resource, so you really have to do a smart job being it is worth you spending that time and resource to go there.
Yeah.
And show up and show that it's going to be worth it. We're going to be able to get measurable results. This is my plan for measuring the impact. This is how we're going to scale it. This is everything we can do there. Really come up with a robust plan, and each touch point has a measurement. I'll be able to see how many attendees are going. I'll be able to collect leads. I'll be able to produce digital content. I'll be able to do this. Look at all the things we can do there, and if we don't go, we won't be able to do any of this.
Right.
It's kind of hard to say no to that.
I agree. I'm grateful that you broke it down that way, because it's one of the, it comes up frequently, again, in our community of just what's the best way to approach that, getting that buy-in. I love it. Okay, we have one last final quick question, which is, what are you've already mentioned one, Splash, thank you so much, but what are some other tools that you use in your day-to-day? I just want to, rapid fire, your favorite MarTech tools in your day-to-day that help you and your team find success.
Yeah, so obviously one, Splash. I have to keep it at number one, even though you told me not to. We use HubSpot a lot. We actually have a newsletter that we run through HubSpot. So usually if we have an event and the event page is on Splash, we'll create a module that sends to our Splash page on HubSpot. So we usually use it to talk to two different things. So Splash, we'll use it everything in our event management is in Splash, and then more general updates to our partner ecosystem about, content, releases, anything they need to know will go through our newsletter. And then if we have an event, that's a really key platform for us to actually invite our partners to as well. So like we're hitting them on multiple communication channels. I do
love it.
Like notice, it's funny, I see different spikes whether we do like direct email campaigns through Splash versus integrating into our newsletter, and we've done testing on like which module gets higher CTAs, like how far out do we need to send, like what is the best cadence, so it's not like we're bothering people. But I kind of have to bother you. I need event attendees.
I'm a big champion of over communication around events. People forget. They register and then they totally forget what your event is about, when it is, and why they should even show up. So I'm a fan of leveraging all the channels that you have access to drive registration and attendance and then ultimately event success.
Yeah.
Nina, we covered a fair amount of ground today. Thank you so much for joining me live here today. I had a blast chatting with you.
Thank you so much. I feel like I could talk to you forever.
Truly, I could. We could go on for hours. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop. But
we have a TikTok to make.
And we have a TikTok to make. That's true. If you enjoyed this episode, I would so appreciate if you support the show and subscribe. We are available on all podcast platforms. Again, Nina, thank you so much. If anyone wants to talk to me about Splash or Nina about how to leverage TikTok for your business, we're going to be hanging around here. Thank you so much for tuning in live or on demand. We appreciate you. And until next time, take care.
Thank you.